all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, this is something. And I didn't have any life-altering, earth-shattering salvation moment for this man. I just helped him get his car started so he could go yell at the used car dealer, I guess. Right? Like, how much fruit in heaven did that really bear? Like, will I get there and he'll be like, man, that day you really helped that guy get back to yell at the used car dealer. I'm putting that in your account. And you know what? The more I think about it, yes. The more I think about it, there were people all throughout the Old Testament that did crazy stuff, and he credited it to them as righteousness. And I think, he's grading on a curve. He's making me better than I really am. I like this. I just have to be willing to say yes in the moment. And in that moment, something will go out that will cause people around us to take notice and to realize that even if you're just helping them in that spot, jumping their battery, getting $10 worth of groceries when they don't have money, whatever that thing may look like to you, if you say yes to the opportunity that comes, you've fulfilled it. That's what this whole thing is that's what this whole opportunity is looking like. So I started looking around, and in Hebrews 10 it says it this way. It says, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works. And I thought, there's actually something that can awaken love inside of us. And it comes from considering one another. That's pretty cool. I mean, I think we all know deep down when we're not doing well, if we try to take the focus off of ourselves, like Mark said, if we get out of that self-pity mode where we are self-focused and looking at our issues, if we take time to look out and see someone else, all of a sudden our perspective changes. And we didn't realize we were fulfilling Scripture. We didn't even know it was probably in the Scripture that if we try to consider someone else, it actually stirs up love and good works inside of us. That's pretty cool. All I got to do is look outside at somebody else's situation rather than my own, and I'm stirring up love and good works in my own heart. If that doesn't want to make me selfish to try to help everybody else, I don't know what will. He's like, hey, while you're doing something over here, I'm doing something for you that's actually solving the thing that you didn't like. That's awesome. Considering one another in order to stir up love and good works. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. So, exhorting is like cheerleading, but not just cheerleading with fluffy stuff. It's like cheerleading with what people actually need to hear. And that's the side of love that is like a missing element oftentimes these days. We just want to say nice things rather than necessarily say what people need to hear in that moment. And true supernatural love involves not saying what people want to hear, but saying what people need to hear in that moment. And you have no responsibility for how they react to it, right? It's not a reason to be harsh or mean, or it's just out of a heart to really want to see someone grow and change. You articulate the truth the best way that you know how. You serve it on a platter. You come from a position of being low and humbled and try to offer them something that they need that will snap them out of where they find themselves. And it's not always what they want to hear. But they will remember the people that told them what they need to hear rather than the people that told them what they wanted to hear. When you look back and you think of the transitions and the shifts and the changes that you made in your life, you remember the people that told you the truth regardless of whether it was convenient or not. You remember the people that loved you enough to tell you something that maybe you didn't want to hear in that moment and allowed you to overreact on them and allowed you to get mad and allowed, you know what I mean? And then you go back and you're like, thank you so much for loving me enough that I could manifest all over you and you still stayed the same. That's what this consistency thing, that's what this steadfastness looks like with each other. Later on in 1 Thessalonians, it says in chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "But let those who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet, the hope of salvation." There's those words again, faith, hope, and love, right? But this time, Paul draws it out as faith and love being the protection here, and hope being the protection here. I find that really, really interesting. I don't think it's by accident. Proverbs says, "Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life," right? So if we know that we have to guard our heart, then a breastplate is the best way to do that. So faith and love are this twofold armor plating that guards our heart and keeps the issues of our life from being tainted by the enemy or by the world or by our own flesh. When we have love for one another and we have the faith to step out and be active in our posture, it actually protects us and keeps our heart pure. And if we continue to hope beyond what our mind is telling us, then that actually ceases or quiets the torment. Because we have a hope that is our protection above what the enemy is assaulting us with at the time. And it's not like, it's this long-term expectation that even if things don't work out the way that our mind is saying, that we're still going to make it. That's what the hope is. The hope's not this supercharged, short-term, man, I think if I hold on one more day, it's going to happen. It's like, what can man do to me kind of hope. If nothing can separate us from the love of God, then what is all of this compared to that? That's the kind of hope that will keep the assault and the mental torment at bay. And when we find ourselves running and racing up here, it's because we've lost sight of our long-term hope and expectation, the eye of the prize. So all we need to do is pick our head up and remember the main thing. Does this make sense? We were at the beach last Sunday. I talked a little bit about it on Tuesday, but I'll finish up with this. We were at the beach our last Sunday afternoon. It looked like storm clouds were coming in. It's like, do we go to the beach or not go to the beach? And so we decided, let's just go for it. And we get there, and so Anna and I were going to trade off exercising while, hey, you watch the kids, you go for a run, and then we'll switch. And so she left and went to run, and when she got back, we looked up all the clouds. Just you could see the rain out in the ocean, but the way the wind was blowing, they just kind of came up, and then they were pushing off into the water before they actually soaked us, and it was awesome. And Lily looked up and saw this rainbow. And it was beautiful and clear. And then a few seconds later, you could see the outline of the double, right? And the second one wasn't nearly as bright or as defined as the first one. And I looked up and I started thinking about the promises of the Lord and how when we first receive those promises, man, they are like that first rainbow. They are as bright and crystal clear as can be, and we see them and we know how it's going to happen and we know what's going to go on. And then over time, if it doesn't come to fruition fast enough or when we think it should, then that bright rainbow kind of turns maybe to that faded rainbow. Or for some of us, we may forget that there even was a rainbow, right? Because that thing just gets obscured. It becomes a little less certain. It becomes a little cloudy. It becomes harder to see definitively because of all the things that have taken place between the word or the dream that the Lord planted inside of us versus the time that we see it fulfilled, right? But for most of us, we bounce back so quickly at the first sign of the Lord changing it. I don't know about you, but some things that I've held on to for a long time and it seems like they're not getting any closer, if one thing happens in my day that makes it seem like that's going to happen again, I come back alive. It's like I remember, the Lord's going to do it. And God forbid he actually do one of them, and we remember that we were like, man, I knew he was going to do it all along. Right? The Lord does something in your life, he told you 10 years ago, and you cut out the middle of the story. Man, the Lord told me 10 years ago he was going to do this, and it just happened. I stood on that thing by faith and saw it through. And people that really know you are like, I don't want to sin right now. So they just cover you because they saw your up and down crazy self riding the highs and lows of whether the Lord was going to come through. It's like that rainbow that was once bright has now waxed dim, but at the littlest inkling that the Lord is still working on that thing, you put it right back in the bright and done category. That's where it has to be. He will move heaven and earth to take those places that have grown dim in our life and bring them back to a place where we can see them brightly and clearly and with a hope and an expectation that they're really going to happen. And one of those things for us is we've had a couple people recently that have decided, man, we're going to move here. The Lord's told us to move here. And whenever I hear people, the Lord putting it on people's hearts to come move here and be a part of it, it reminds me of something that, he spoke to me 5, 6 or more years ago at this point. And it only takes like one person at a time for me to remember that this thing might actually happen. It's the weirdest thing. It doesn't even matter what's going on. It's this fresh nudge from the Lord that he is the one that finishes and completes it. And I get excited about it. And another one of those things is this School of Life thing that we're doing in July. Like, I don't know how many years we've talked about it. And hey, it's time to do it. All right, let's do it. And you wouldn't believe the people that are jumping at the opportunity to want to come from other countries and other places and be involved, and people that are in ministry, people that aren't in ministry, people that don't know what ministry is. I mean, everywhere in between, they're like, let's do this thing. It's a fresh reviving that takes place of the vision or the dreams that are inside. And I remember what it was like when we were at Morning Star, and every year there would be this fresh wave of students come in the fall. And everybody at the church knew it was like this shot in the arm for the whole organization to have the students come in the fall. Because they hadn't grown comfortable with it yet. The tyranny of the familiar. People that had been experiencing it for a while, it was like, nah, that's no big deal. But for people that were hungry for it, it was amazing. Yes. And it took the overall level of everybody up. And at some point, what takes place is rather than people coming in and just having to regress to the status quo, enough people come in that it creates a new catalyst, which actually moves the other organization into the new thing. And that's what we're moving towards. The trickle is great. The trickle is great because it brings people in with fresh energy, fresh passion. People that don't know they're not allowed to do that yet or it won't work. We've tried that. People that don't know those things try things anyway. I'm guilty of that. I just try stuff. I know people say it won't work. I don't care. I'm with you on the definition of insanity, like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting it to change. So I'm okay with changing some stuff. I'll try stuff. If it doesn't work, I'll say, hey, that didn't work. And I'll try something else. But I won't be guilty of doing nothing. If I'm going to miss on the active trying to do something rather than hoping that he will somehow rescue us if we sit in the fetal position long enough. This makes sense. You can feel it. It's like a wave. You can feel the regression of the water receding into the next wave. And this last season has been about the regression of the wave, which means the next wave is about to crash. You can look at it and think, man, things are regressing. Or you can realize that water is actually being sucked back in to join the next wave and the momentum of what the Lord is bringing next. Does this make sense? The sucking in that you've been feeling is to participate and partner with the next wave that's going to crash. And that's the cool part. And all we have to do is just remember to live out of the voice of love, which when partnered with that faith of stepping out and that hope of knowing things are going to work out for my benefit if I don't give up. That's how we stay balanced. And I can't tell you what you're supposed to do because it depends on where you're coming from. But I know who you need to go talk to. And after you feel like you've heard something, I'd be happy to bounce it off of each other for a while just to kind of talk it over. Offer counsel, offer some suggestions. Mark, all of us would do the same thing. But I can tell you that if you come and you are struggling with something, the first thing we're going to ask is, what has the Lord told you about it? Because that's the destination. We don't have to know where you're coming from, but we can point you where you're going. Does this make sense? It is simple. I love what Marshall's talked about. Loving people in the midst of it. And the Lord loving you while you're in the midst of it. We can do this. We can do this. And we're going to need people that, I know Brad mentioned it last week, but just to remind you, people are coming for July, so we need places to put them. If you are interested in opening up your home for 3.5 weeks in July, just connect with Mark, myself, Holly, somebody, and let us know that you'd be willing. We can talk to you a little bit more about what that would look like, but we have people that we want to meet this family. So we feel like we have something here in the way of you guys that can benefit people that want a revelation of what relationship looks like. And it's so much easier to bring them into a place like this and let them experience it and then take it back to the places that they've come from. Does that make sense? So I just want to pray for you guys that there's a real reminding of the promises that the Lord has placed in your hearts, things that He's spoken to you, and especially for those of you that have lost sight of what He's doing. You know, we get in those grinding seasons where all we can see is the next day in front of us, but that doesn't keep us from still maintaining the overarching goal of where he's taking us. And I just want to pray that during this week he brings a fresh reminder to those that have gotten stuck in the grind of being faithful and obedient to those things, that he would continue to remind you of the overarching desires and the dreams and the plans that he has for your life. You can picture it like this. You can picture when you're about to summit a mountain, it gets to a point where it's so steep that you're basically on your hands and your knees and you're having to fight for every little step that you make, every little progress, every little handhold, every little foothold. And the only thing that you can see when you're in that season is trying to get to the top. All you can see is the face of the mountain. And there's been a number of you that have been in that season of grinding, in that season of having to fight for each step, for every little handhold and foothold. And I saw you cresting the summit of that mountain. And when you finally get a chance to take a breath and you realize where he's taken you and ascended you to, then you're able to look out and you're able to see with fresh perspective the horizon that's really out there. It's like being at one level, seeing what's out in there, and then the Lord say, hey, let me take you up higher. And all of the effort and exertion to go up higher doesn't make you feel like you're going anywhere. But when you get up there, you can see from a different vantage point, and you can even see farther out than you could see before. And I saw the Lord opening up your guys' vision to see the horizon of what's out there, the promises, the dreams, the plans that he has, moving beyond this season of having to fight it out for every tooth and nail, handhold, foothold, and actually being able to look out and see why he had you grinding in the first place. So, Lord, right now I just pray that all over the room during this week, Lord, that you would give pictures, reminders, Lord, that you would break into people's grinding seasons, and that you would show them why they're grinding in the short term and the things that are out there in the long term. Lord, I pray that you would continue to remind us that faith, hope, and love abide together. Lord, that they live together, that they relate to each other, that they are all wrapped up inside of each other. And Lord, if we can remember one thing, it's that if we love you and we look for opportunities to love each other, we can actually stir up you inside of our own lives. Lord, I pray that we would be so consumed by looking for you and other people that you would actually take care of our stuff without us realizing you did it. Let us become unaware of our own needs and our own wants and our own desires, and let us be focused on loving you in others that causes all these things to be added as well. And Lord, I just break off the unmet expectations, the disappointments, the discouragements, Lord, the things that have clouded our vision for seeing you for who you really are and for seeing ourselves right there with you. Lord, we love you. We're here because you loved us. And even your voice called us out of crazy places to set us into these green pastures. Lord, I ask that you would show off in the lives of the people that are here, in the lives of people that are watching. Lord, I pray that those that are just risky and bold enough to turn towards you in expectation this week, I pray that you would show yourself strong in their lives. Whether it be finances, whether it be physical healing, whether it be reconnections and restoration of relationships, I pray that whatever that thing is that the enemy's really been assaulting and tormenting, I pray that you would come in and just cut that head off. And with it, a renewed sense of your faith and your hope and your love. In Jesus' name. We do have ministry team members. They have fancy badges on. if you would like prayer this morning, I'm just going to invite the ministry team to come up. They're trained in they're skilled in everything. So if you have a need of something, just come up here. They would love to pray and minister to you. They can prophesy, they can heal, they can do all that stuff, and they enjoy doing it. So we love you guys. We'll see you next week, and come have fun with the ministry team.